In episode 7, we speak with Tommy Christian of TC Boost based in the Chicago area. And the great thing about speaking with Tommy is that he'll tell us about his story and being at a Division I school, playing football at a very high level, and then going into a career which could be quite lucrative and stable as an engineer. But then he made the decision to work with athletes and basically start from the bottom again, and worked his way through coaching at a university to leaving that job and then starting his own private business. Lots of great takeaways here in talking with Tommy, finding your passion, figuring out how to make the business work, and enjoying every minute of it, even in tough times like we're experiencing currently during the pandemic. So I hope you enjoy my conversations with Tommy Christian of TC Boost. All right, my good friend Tommy Christian. We're catching up here and going to go over Tommy's story. And I find talking with Tommy always fascinating. We share some similar thoughts and approaches and backgrounds. And when we met, I don't know, about 4 or 5 years ago, we hit it off right away. So, Tommy, welcome to the podcast. And I just want to, again, we're just going to get your story because I think you have a very compelling and interesting story.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Derek. I was excited you asked me, and like we talked, it's just always fun to reflect back and share. We all have stories, and they're all hopefully meaningful to us, and hopefully of value for other people to hear. And so I'm happy to tell mine.
Yeah, and let's start right off the bat, what you're doing right now and where you're at, and then I want to take a jump into the DeLorean time machine and go back and find out how this all started. So what are you doing right now?
Yeah, well, I own TC Boost Sports Performance. We're in Northbrook, suburb of Chicago, and I have a 10,000 square foot facility, very much focused on speed development and movement. And that's very much our niche within sports performance. Not to say that we don't believe in strength training, and we are doing that as well. But our real focus and our business is really to be the best that we can be to serve our clients' needs with regards to speed and movement. Always believe that that's really the biggest differentiator in sports. And we train athletes from every sport, really, even to figure skating, bobsled, football, baseball, track, lacrosse. We're just really broad range, a lot of tennis clients. And so we're serving, our biggest clientele is a high school athlete, but then we have a growing group of summer athletes that are college athletes that are, back in Chicago. And that's usually not the D1, especially when it comes to football. They're usually with their college programs, but we'll have some D2, D3 kids. Maybe we trained in high school that come back. We do NFL combine prep. Currently I think it's my 22nd year of doing that, which, and that's just a very different business segment, but it's 6 to 8 weeks in the winter. And then we also work with adult fitness, as kind of a smaller component. But our real focus is speed and movement development, really within that high school and youth athlete. And we're just reaching out, within the Chicago area, doing business both in our facility, and then we have some contracts with some high schools outside of the facility, and just really working to do the best we can, being more focused now in terms of what we're doing.
Yeah, and your whole marketing pitch and approach around speed and movement, I assume that goes back to when you were an athlete. And I've seen you do a few things on the videos that you guys post, like you're out there running and doing stuff. And I went to Top Golf with you, saw you smash some golf balls. So you have an athletic background. So did that influence the direction of your business?
Yeah, I mean, I think my own background, and as Derek, I mean, I played college football. My last season was 1992, so I was in high school in the 80s, and my training experience back then really involved, getting stronger, gaining weight, getting in shape for football, and there was not this other component of speed development. And so I think, my own experience as an athlete was I saw a great value and benefit as I got stronger and I got more powerful. I played linebacker at Northwestern. I would gain weight and I would keep getting faster. And that was in spite of the fact that we really weren't doing speed development. We weren't doing mechanics work. It was just, we were sprinting, incomplete recovery, and I was getting stronger and more powerful. And so I did, and I think just from my own experience, I've seen that, yeah, like you can actually, doing back squats, I think, I mean, that was my best thing, and I loved it. I was pretty stinking strong in it. And every off season, my max would go up about 70 pounds and I'd get faster, and like, so I was like, hey, and I felt a difference in acceleration. Now my mechanics probably weren't great, top speed, definitely not great, but what really kind of guided me into what I'm doing, well, I guess it wasn't, we can get into that more, but it wasn't super intentional. Like really what I saw was just by training, the changes that I could make athletically in my own career. And I never deserved to, like, there's no way I'm a Big Ten starting linebacker, yet that was what I became. If you saw me, I was a freshman in high school, I weighed 125 pounds, and so I had, really, without that training, I would never have done what I did. And I really had this belief that if that kind of training that I had, really, especially when I went into my college career and my brother was playing in the NFL, and I really believe that, if we could make that kind of training accessible to the high school athlete, that we could really, like, make a huge difference in the trajectory of, some young athletes' career paths. And so that was kind of the genesis of it. Wasn't speed development. It was just this belief that great training can really transform and open up new opportunities, especially, and as I was starting out, I was really thinking with the sport of football, I really felt like if you had somebody who was just a good athlete and you train them really well, you could make them a great football player. And that there was just a place that they could probably go to and launch to in terms of, maybe being a college football player if they just had that commitment.
Did it help to have an older sibling that was kind of paving a way too, that
Oh,
you
yeah.
could kind of?
Yeah. I mean, I was so fortunate, Derek. I mean, my brother was a senior when I was a freshman, and he was a top running back in the St. Louis area. He was highly recruited, but my brother, like, nobody outworked him. And it was really, it was kind of like annoying to me, like, he, in the summers, he'd come in my room and wake me up and say, come on, we're going to run. And, in St. Louis, his summers are like 95 degrees, really humid. And he just was such a hard worker, was so consistent, was a great role model for me. It was almost like, it wasn't even an option for me if I was going to, go to the weight room after school, because I was going to ride home with my brother, and, he's going to be there. I have to be there too. And so, he really helped a lot, I think. I mean, I, I was a hard worker to begin with, but I think having that role model was huge. And just seeing what he accomplished kind of opened up my eyes to, maybe things that I could do.
And when you went through college,
Mhm.
where with some of the training and some of the preparation, were there some things there? Obviously, you said there were some good things. Were
Yeah.
there some things there where you're like, maybe this could have been done a bit better. Maybe this would have, made me an NFL superstar if I did this. Or were there any questions, I guess, about what you did and how you could make it better?
Yeah. You know, I don't, I really feel like I was just kind of all in when I was there, and Larry Lilja was my strength coach when I was at Northwestern. I feel like he did a great job with us, and was always, I think, looking to see what he could do better, and where we could do some different things. But, yeah, I loved it. I think I went from high school to college, and then would come home on, Christmas break or spring break, and, I'd see my friends from high school, and they're like, man, are you on steroids? Because, like, I'd gotten, there was such a change in the trajectory, and I think it was really being on a really sound program of like strength and power development, and also being in this environment. And that's kind of what one of my visions originally too is thinking, if we can create the environment in the gym of what the environment is, and especially in the college football weight rooms, like, I mean, you've seen, I mean, the energy level, sometimes it's a problem, like when it comes to like refinement of speed and movement, but like they get after it.
Yeah.
There's so much energy. And I think the value of drawing more effort out of athletes, I now know that you have to be strategic in that, but there's a lot of power in that environment. I think that helps to create a more rapid progression of development, certainly in the weight room on that side of it. I think it, maybe as a speed coach, it's a little more, I think, problematic on the side that I'm focused on now. But I do think there's times where you want to get that effort out. And I think what's happening in a lot of the college weight rooms is fantastic for that.
Yeah, and I'm all about that sort of placebo effect of group cohesion and hype and all that too. Obviously there's cases where it can go a little overboard and there's lack of oversight on the actual training, but yeah, I can see what you're saying there and how that even for myself, I was talking to an athlete who's in college up in Canada here, and they're in isolation and they can only do maybe one or two people coached at a time. And I just thought back to my college days and the energy I got from the group
Yeah.
and that dynamic, the social and the everything, the momentum behind that, and a lot of kids aren't getting that right now. So that's pretty tough.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, in this virtual environment, and we do Zoom, we've done Zoom things, and some of our coaches are still working with some of the high schools where they're still doing Zoom workouts, and they do a great job. And I think our profession is getting better at that environment, but it's just, I mean, it's not the same. I think it's really challenging.
Yeah. So you went through college, successful starter. Was there an attempt to go pro and like really take this to the next level?
Yeah, I never had the chance to realize that I would have never made it because so so my college career, my junior year, I earned the starting Mike linebacker role at Northwestern. That was the year Gary Barnett came in, and 4 years later, we won the Big Ten and went to the Rose Bowl, and that was when Pat Fitzgerald, who's now the head coach at Northwestern, was an All-American, and so I was at the end of my career was right when the genesis of that turnaround sort of started. And so my junior year, Barnett's first year, they moved me to inside linebacker from outside, and I earned the starting job in spring ball, actually of my sophomore year. Uh, Played through my junior year. I broke a rib, broke my sternum,
Mm.
separated my shoulder, all within that season. And then the end of the year, like I started getting these like super sharp pains in my hip where my leg would just give out, and I didn't really understand it. We went to play University of Illinois, rode the bus down to Champaign. After a Friday walkthrough in Evanston, I get off the bus and I can't walk. I can't extend my hip without like a knife pain in my hip. I'm like, did I pull my hip flexor? I didn't really know what it was. I didn't really talk to anybody about it. I just tried to, maybe I'll sleep it off. And in the morning, I couldn't get that pain to go away. I couldn't loosen it up. So I didn't play. It went away by Tuesday the next week. So I played last 3 games of the year, but I have these occasional shots of pain. And then after the season, I went in and I did a squat workout. I still, it was like 3 sets of 10 with 315, which was like really easy at the time for me, which is, and I went in and saw the team doc. He had me get x-rays the week before, and he said, it's not good. I'm like, what do you mean? He said, well, your college football career is over. You'll never play again. He said, I had avascular necrosis in my hip, in my left femoral head. A third of the head of my femur was had degenerated, and he said, if you keep playing, in fact, if you just keep walking on it, like your hip will collapse and you'll need an artificial hip. And it was the same thing that Bo Jackson had, actually in his hip, although mine was not. They couldn't trace it to a specific injury, but it can happen if somebody dislocates their hip. I threw discus in high school, and there's some weird torques and extensions and disc. Who knows? It was just what do they call it? Idiopathic.
Yeah.
They didn't know. But I had a core decompression surgery. I was medical, and so that was it. So then my senior year, I was basically like a graduate assistant as an undergrad. So I ran the scout team offense. I helped work with the linebackers, and just still being a part of the team, but not able to play. So I never got the chance to like see what would happen. And I look back. We had these goal cards that they put on our lockers going into my last off season before I got medical, and it had my goal for my body weight and how much my squat and my clean and my bench. Strangely, not my 40 time or my vertical jump or things that I believe probably would have been better. But I never got to do that my senior year. And so yeah, I mean, it was tough at the time, but there was also some blessing in it looking back. And I have no, I'm not. I don't regret that at all. I don't think. I think it helped me to move on and really kind of change my focus. So
Yeah, and you were at a good academic school, and
yeah.
I know you had a pretty strong academic background yourself, and you want to tell people a bit about that, what you were doing in school at that time.
Yeah, I was a mechanical engineer. That's what I was studying, and I'd always thought that I wanted to design automobiles from the time I was a kid. Loved Motor Trend, car. Still do. I love cars, and so I was good at math and science. So this is what I'm going to do. My dad's an engineer. I have a bunch of math teachers in my family background, some doctors, and just very science math background. And so, yeah, I was going to study mechanical engineering, which is what I wound up graduating with. And, the funny thing is when I got medical, my GPA went way up, after I lost my, 40 hours a week commitment to college football. But it was more, for me, it really wasn't as much the time as it really was the focus of, getting ready to go play at the big house and play Michigan. And I have a thermodynamics midterm, and which one's going to take more of my like energy and focus. Like I'm going to play in front of 100,000 people, like and this was like uh and so I didn't think that I was going to go to the NFL, and so that my grades weren't important. But I don't think I took the academic side. I mean, I certainly didn't have as much energy invested into it. So
Hmm.
when I got medical, my GPA went way up, which was important, I think, because just to open those doors, especially early on. It's probably the only time your GPA matters, right? It's like your first job out of college, but it mattered for as an engineer. I mean, there was opportunities that you could or could not have based on your GPA. And so, but I got a job in the automotive industry coming out of Northwestern, and worked there for 4.5 years as a program manager, and was kind of not super technical on the engineering side, but I needed the technical expertise. But it was more of sales, relationship, things that I was probably better suited for. But also as a former athlete, being used to getting yelled at all the time, like I would be going into General Motors and Ford plants, on behalf of my company, and get yelled at by plant managers because our parts were failing. And and I was okay with it, just like, hey, I've been cussed out, and I know what this feels like. And so I think it helped me to be sort of this customer liaison, but that ultimately wasn't what I really wanted to do with my life, as it turned out. So
Yeah, how come you're not like a major executive at Tesla right now? You gotta tell us what happened there.
yeah, it was, and I wouldn't assume, just like I wouldn't assume that I would have gone to the NFL. I also wouldn't assume that I'd be a high up at Tesla at this point. But um, yeah, I was doing well in my career, but it was just, as as I started, and I was, single at the time, living in Detroit. I had a little townhouse with a basement, and I bought a bench press, and I had power blocks from 1995. I put a pull-up bar in between the joists down in the basement, and you'd have to like pull up like right between the joists, or you'd hit your head, and there was nails sticking through. So if you pulled up too high, you'd get a nail through the top of your head. But I kept working out, and I'd have my buddies come over and work out with me. And I was, in college, I mean, I was the guy who paid attention to the strength coach, and I would try to understand a little bit of the whys behind what we did. So, I was actually pretty well equipped to like train myself and my friends for free. And, in my mid 20s, like I was stronger than I ever was as a college athlete. And, my nerdy engineering friends were bulking up, and I'm like, I kind of, I kind of like this. And, I'd always thought if I don't love engineering, maybe I'll go back to school and to be get a teaching certificate, maybe be a high school math teacher and be a football coach. Cause like, as an athlete, it gets in your blood, you love it. And there's just something about competing. There's something about the growth that takes place. There's something about the relationships with these coaches. It had such a big impact in my life. And so I started, getting a little bit, just thinking like, this isn't what I want to do for the rest of my life, is try to make money for some company I don't really care about. We made like sealants and adhesives and sound deadeners, like big whoop, like I wasn't passionate about it. And I thought if I, I'm going to spend a majority of my life at work, if I can somehow make that line up with really making a difference in people's lives, like that'd be awesome. Like I'd love that. And I started thinking, gosh, like there's no, and that's where I just thought if I had what I learned in college when I was in high school, it would have been transformative. And I want to say my high school coach was fantastic, but still like there was just such this gap. And I thought maybe there's this chance to like create this, my brother was playing in the NFL, and I knew what was available. And at that time, like you were either super lucky in the 80s that you had a very forward thinking high school coach. More likely than not, you had like a universal machine in some corner of the locker room. And, if you wanted to work out, you had to go to Bally's, and so I just started dreaming about that. It took me like 2 years of dreaming before I got the courage to quit my job, and move into an unpaid internship from, a job that at that time, I mean, it was a really good job. I was on a great path. I was making, money that I wouldn't make for years after that, when I went into our field, but I left Detroit excited about what was next, even though, I really, in my mind, I'm like, all right, I'm going to do an unpaid internship at Northwestern. This is how naive I was. All right. I quit my engineering job in April, sold my place the end of April, had a month to like shoot hoops and goof off before I went back to, Evanston. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to do an 8-week internship, and then I'm going to open a business in the fall and train athletes for a living,
That sounds solid. That sounds like a good plan.
It only takes 8 weeks. And then and obviously I get there, and like the first thing I remember is like how confirming it was to me to be in that environment, that this is where I'm supposed to be. It was like, I felt like this is what God made me to do. I love coaching. I love being in this environment of like drawing energy and celebrating with athletes and like making this connection. Just loved it, and it helped that it was my alma mater, but like, I just, and I was just, and I wasn't designing any program. I was just in the weight room spotting guys and like, yeah, let's go, and I'm like, what are we doing for running? Okay, get these sleds. I like haul them out. And, I was just trying to invest in them, and I loved it. And, but didn't really know at all what I was going to actually be doing within it, and so by the end of the summer, I'm like, there's no way I'm starting a business. I just need to stay in this environment and learn and grow, because it's such a rich, being in a Division I program, that, especially one that's under resourced. We had 17 varsity sports that we were trying to serve with 3 full-time strength coaches and 2 interns, of which I was one of them at the time. And so it was just a great place to just stay. And I had made a little money on the sale of my townhouse, so I had a little bit of a cushion there. And I look back on it, and like I wasn't worried at all. Um, I had no stress about what I'm going to do, how I'm going to provide. I feel like I was just felt like I was right where God wanted me to be, and I just was excited about whatever the future was, and I didn't really know what it looked like at that point.
Well, I mean, that's great. I mean, to be in that position where you did have, like you said, a bit of a financial cushion, and
Yeah,
you weren't in any rush. You didn't feel any anxiety over the time.
right.
And I assume you didn't have a wife and kids or even a
Yeah,
dog
that
or
was
something
key. I had no yeah,
like that.
I had no debt. You know, I mean, I was fortunate to be on a scholarship in college, and yeah, it was like kind of the ideal time to make a drastic move like that.
Yeah, because some people, you know, don't get into that. They do get married and have the mortgage and all that. So that's a really good lesson in terms of, take your risks when there's less liabilities, I assume. And then when did you ultimately decide, okay, I've spent enough time learning under Yoda here, and I'm gonna go set up my own shop and try something?
Yeah. Um, well, so 1999, I started the unpaid internship. The coach who was the assistant, the men's assistant, left for the head football strength coach job at University of Colorado, and then the head strength coach Larry Lilja hired me. Although it took a while before I got approved to be hired, but I was hired the following April as the men's assistant. And and we could talk about this later, but I wound up taking over the role of speed coach,
Hmm.
which I was like, and that was not, I didn't go into it thinking that I wanted to be a speed coach. I went into it just thinking I want to be a strength coach.
Yep.
And that was a very obviously pivotal time in my career when I was tasked with that responsibility of developing the running workouts that the football team was doing and leading them. And so, but I was for from 2000 to 2002, I was full time assistant. I was doing all of the speed development work for the football program in terms of all writing all the programs, leading all of the workouts. But then also, I was the head strength coach for the wrestling program for the baseball team. I had taken over volleyball. I had men's soccer. Um, I was doing speed training for the field hockey, for the soccer, for the So there was just a lot of different opportunities in those couple of years. But my goal was always to work with a high school athlete, and as a Division I coach, NCAA rules, you can't work with high school athletes um, unless you set up a camp at the university. Like, you really couldn't do what I really felt like I wanted to do. And so I always knew that this was a season of learning and experience and growth. And even like, during that time, I remember the 2000 season, Northwestern was co-Big Ten champs, and we ran the spread offense. We had just put it in, and that was the first full off season leading into that year that I was the speed coach for the football team, and I was in charge of their conditioning as well. And we just were just running teams ragged in the fall, and the spread was new. People didn't know how to stop it. Our tailback, Damian Anderson, wound up being was second in the nation in rushing to LaDainian Tomlinson. And Damian was a first team All-American. And we were, the year before, we had no explosion plays, very few. Damian was still the starting tailback. He averaged about 3 yards a carry. And then that next year, he averaged over 6 yards a carry and had almost 2,000 yards. And the media started to notice the speed of our team. And right before we played Michigan, who we beat in a super exciting, like 54-51 overtime game, ESPN it was ABC, they came and they wanted do some videos of the work that we were doing with the team. And there was a lot of talk about how fast our guys were and what kind of condition they were in. And it was really fun because I was like my first year as a speed coach, and there was all this, focus on it. And so you get a little media around that. And then all these high school coaches start calling the weight room, and they're like, hey, I'm the high school head coach at this school. I heard about what you guys are doing with speed development. Will you love to hear more about what you're doing? And so we're, having a chance to talk to high school coaches about this. And I went to Oklahoma, like a high school in Oklahoma flew me down there to do something with them, to Broken Arrow High School. And, they had better facilities than Northwestern just about at the time. So of course it was Oklahoma or Texas school that had the budget at that time to do that. But, and so in my time there, all these high school coaches are calling, and I'm like, well, what a great time. It's going to be so easy to transition because, they already understand the value. And it seems like, maybe I have some credibility because of what I've done that might help to open those doors. And, and of course, as soon as I'm not at Northwestern and then I reach out and call the high school coaches, they don't want to talk to me anymore. It was kind of tied into the fact that I was still there. It was kind of eye opening that, no, this isn't going to be easy. You're going to get a lot more no's than you're going to get yeses, when I started out. But 2002 is when I kind of took the second leap of faith and resigned from Northwestern, and I had to resign and walk away from being the speed coach for a Division I football program. And what happened was an old teammate of mine had come by. His name is Brian Musso, and he said, I've got this vision for this facility that's running, this very high level training program, just, like a collegiate level program for high school athletes. It's also in the inner city of Chicago on the west side. It was going to be a $10 million facility. And there's going to be, different, for-profit revenue streams. But we're also going to be making an impact in the inner city, which was something I was really interested in. And he's like, what do you think? Would you want to help me do this? And I'm like, it's really uncanny. The things that he said were things that I had written down, before I even left to my engineering job. And I was like, yes, I felt like it was the right time. And so I resigned to start trying to grow the private side of what eventually became TC Boost. And what was really surprising is after I left, that next off season, Randy Walker, who's the head football coach at Northwestern at the time, their staff reached out to me to ask if I would be willing to continue to be in the role of the speed coach for the football team, but as a contract coach. And I didn't even know that was a possibility, and I was like, yeah, that'd be amazing. Like it was incredible, like such a blessing. And so, from then until 2012, I was still the speed coach for the Northwestern's football program, still training, NFL draft prep stuff, not just Northwestern guys, but other places, while I was working on growing this private side business. So it was just, it was nothing that was intentional, it just really fortunate that happened, and it really helps me to be able to do what I'm doing now.
Well, that's a perfect example of like maintaining those relationships. And you resigned on your own accord. You weren't fired. You weren't, there wasn't a problem. So you had a good relationship with the school.
Yeah.
And so that kind of speaks to your, professionalism and relationship that they want to keep you on. And I know you still have a great relationship with the school now and still do some stuff with them. Is that true?
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
I do. It's there's nothing as involved as a year-round contract, but in 2012 when that ended, that was the time when the NCAA rule changed for college football strength staffs limited to 5 coaches, and so we would have counted against that. So at the time it was kind of hard to lose that, but look, there's no way that my business could have grown the way it has if I was still going to Northwestern 2 or 3 days a week, and they're a big customer. I couldn't tell them, oh, we can't train at that time because I've got something else going on. It was like whatever they said, and then I had to fill in. So yeah, I mean, being more of a consultant role, and just I mean, even not even formal, but just, I just love, being able to work with those guys and talk shop with them, and just, the chance to then train most of the Northwestern guys that have come out and have gone on to the NFL over the years has been really great as well. So
Yeah, so you have this academic background, mechanical engineer. You have your what I would call a pretty good college career as a football player. You had the sales experience and the dealing with a big organization when you're working with the automobile industry. Then you're back into the college setting working, and so all these different things have kind of converged to kind of help you with what you're doing with your business. Is that true?
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's all. I think all of it plays a part into, who I am. I think, and certainly I remember starting out in engineering, and it's my first job, and being able to see within an organization what are like, these are really good things that should be happening, and these are like, that should never happen. I just think it was interesting to see, and also to see how much time people, like, just in the corporate world, there's just so much wasted time. And I think as an athlete, you have this sense of urgency about you, that like you have this short window and you have to maximize it, or it's past. The opportunity is gone. And then going from that, like, super intense, super consistent, on task environment that was like, being a college athlete and an engineering student at the same time, and then being in this corporate world, I think it just, I don't know that I can go back and say what specific things from that time, other than, I think a real awareness of the importance of the customer, um, and then also this belief that, like, we're going to find a way to make it happen, and I think, from being in a position where if I didn't get parts to Chicago assembly plant, the plant would shut down and they would bill my company millions of dollars, and so I had to figure out a way to work with our manufacturing in Kansas City, get all of the parts flown up to Midway, meet the Southwest Airlines, and the parts would, like, basically have a seat on the airplane, so it's like same day delivery, pick it up, take it to the plant, quarantine out the stuff that's failing. And I think that was prepared me for, I think, the agility that you have to have when you're, especially, in a business as it just starts up. Like, you have to say yes to a lot of things, and you just have to find a way to make stuff happen, so that you can start to create some revenue streams that then later, I think, allow you to be maybe more intentional or focused. So at least that was kind of how I did it. It's just say yes to a lot of things, and because we need revenue, we need training, and then trying to, dial in as we went to what we really wanted to do.
Yeah, and it sounds like, which is interesting segue here. It sounds like that way of thinking and that way of operating has helped you now. Now that we're in sort of this pandemic, I call it pandemic periodization, and you're trying to figure things out, and
Yeah.
all of those organizational characteristics, all of that urgency and finding things and making it work. Has that really helped you now?
Yeah. I mean, I remember, like, go back to the end of March, and I had 7 NFL guys that were training with us, and I was really excited that there's some things that were starting to go well, but then, COVID is becoming a very real thing, and it was like within a week it went from, this might be serious, to like everybody shut down and at home, and so and that was right. We were going to go out to Vail and go skiing. That was my kid's spring break. It was right at the end of the combine prep, which is always like, I need a break. And then instead it was like, an adrenaline filled mad scramble to like figure out how we can save our business, how can we pivot, what can we do to be able to still, you know, keep these, 7 NFL guys going training, but more than that, all of the people that have been training with us in our facility, what can we offer? And we had just set up Team Builder in January, just not for the pandemic, but we were just fortunate that we already had that in place, and really quickly and I had the help of one of my best friend owns a sports PR agency, and they were really gracious to help us to like get some of the messaging out, to have some virtual offerings, and we scrambled, and even to the point of finding a field, because not knowing when we were going to be able to reopen, state of Illinois, June 1st, we were able to reopen, but the in facility, it could only be one-on-one training. And that would have killed us. And so we rented a field turf field, because outdoors we could have a group of up to 9, and we could space everybody out safely, and people had masks on, and so we moved all of our group training outside. We had indoors. We were doing one-on-one training, and we just, like, you had to be quick. We had to get the field rental, get the information out. My staff did a fantastic job. Steve Breitenstein, who's my director of coaching, is such an asset and is so helpful. And the things that he was able to put together on some of the programming side, and helping to get our coaches ready to run that. It was just a team effort, and to the point where we go into June, and we had the best month that we've ever had in June, and in May we didn't even know if we were going to be open in the summer, and so I think that, like, sort of rapid response, maybe some of the automotive stuff helped, but I also have a great team around me that, and everybody contributed greatly to being able to pivot and be where we are today. So yeah.
Yeah, and some of those things you were talking about before, you know, there are changes that are going to stick even beyond, once everybody's vaccinated and we're back hopefully to normal.
Yeah.
What were some of the things that you think you're going to carry forward?
Yeah, I mean, one thing, and I think anybody who has a sports performance facility that does group training, you see that there's sort of you could have a great training program and plan, and a way of executing that in training sessions, but that's only part of it. The other part of it is the experience that athletes have, and if they come in, and even if you've got a great plan, you got a great facility, your coach is dynamic, but it's like an awkward experience. Like, it's not going to be good. They're not going to come back, and I think a lot of times, especially when you deal with 13, 14, 15-year-old athletes, there takes time for them to acclimate socially to one another. And so what we had always done is we had our group slots, but then they could kind of pick and choose when they would come in to train. And because we needed to know how many people we were going to have, because we had to have a set cap limit, and in our facility we set it to no more than 6 athletes in a group. You had to commit to 7 o'clock Tuesday, Thursday, or 4 o'clock Monday, Wednesday, and so what we wound up doing was having, because there was a scarcity environment, people had the, like, kind of the fear of missing out. So I think they were quicker to, like, want to make sure that they got the slot, and lo and behold, they can actually come at Monday and Wednesday at 4 o'clock consistently if you kind of make them, so to speak. And then the side benefit, like, who's going to be there. We were able to keep our group sizes where they need to be. We also were able to know exactly when we needed to open up another slot, and it's always been a goal of, we have a varsity slot. Like, we should have 3 or 4 slots a day after school. And we had always struggled to get beyond one. We'd have one varsity, one junior high, one youth, a bunch of privates. But I always felt like that growth opportunity was those small groups to take off. now we know when those classes are full, and so we know when to add the next class. And so, now we have 4 slots going a day on varsity, which is awesome. Um, and then also our clients get to know each other, and it's awesome to see them start to build this chemistry among themselves in that training group. And it's the same thing that you see, that I see when we train guys for the draft, and they get to know each other, and they're, before you know it, they're cracking jokes, they're pushing each other, they're having fun, and it's just a much better environment. So that's really helped us a lot, just to have those defined groups.
Yeah, so you found pretty much that people like having that structure and then committing to it almost like your college experience, right? Like you have that combination of like, okay, we're training this many times a week, but we're also going to have some fun too. We're
Right.
also going to, and it seems like from the videos again I've seen of you doing stuff at your facility, it seems like you guys have really integrated that sort of fun piece and that family piece to it as well.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it's easier to have that when you have that consistency of just that you can build relationships and really start to connect. And especially, coming off the pandemic, and just seeing like how many kids, I mean, people are struggling, not just kids, but like in this world, like, like it's not healthy for 15-year-olds to not be interacting with people. And so really being one of the few things that they can do in the presence of other people has made a lot of difference. And it's been really meaningful, I think, for our staff. And we just see like big benefits, not only on them, obviously getting faster and stronger and moving better, but like even more so this positive, being the best part of their day. If we can be the best part of their day, like what a great goal, and that's really what we want to do.
Yeah, I really, appreciate all of this stuff that you've kind of let us in on and your evolution and how it's all come together. Because I think people need to hear that, and they need to hear a bit of the like you had this experience outside of sports that really helped you, and
Yeah.
then you took a risk here, and then you had this relationship building here, and all of these pieces are so important. And then you even have, you use a lot of technology, I know as well. So again, you're pulling from your academic background, you're into the technology. So I think that sort of renaissance man well-roundedness that you've kind of built in is really important for people to understand.
Yeah. I mean, I just think that, um, we all have like different gifts and talents, and then we also have these experiences that go into it. And I think it's fun as you start to in, invest yourself in the direction where you feel passionate, and where you start to see where, your gifts actually kind of match up with your passion. Like you're going to be successful, if your gifts are separate from your passion. And I've seen NFL players I've trained who retired early because even though they're among the best in the world at what they do, they don't love it. And
Yeah.
so even though they make a lot of money, and like it's just not worth it. And it's the same for us. Is um, you know, and I think it's challenging in our field. I think we are devalued, so much. I know you've talked about that. You've hosted a lot of talks around that. Where it's like, why do you have to have 17 unpaid internships before somebody pays you a pathetic salary? Like I came out of being an engineer, and I mean it was just peanuts compared to what you would have there. And I felt like the innovation, the effort, the time, the quality of work is it's so high. There's so many coaches doing such awesome work. And um, but I do think you have to maximize those opportunities. There's not that many.
Yeah, well, you've shown, I mean, it's great. You've shown that by putting all this stuff together, having that passion, that determination, that you can survive and thrive during a pandemic. So that's, kudos to you. And how do people find out more about TC Boost and the work you're doing? What's the website? What's the Instagram address that we can follow?
Yeah, tcboost.com is our website, and then at tcboost is our Instagram, and at Tommy double underscore Christian is my personal Instagram. But yeah, those are the best places. And just I know a lot of coaches follow you, Derek. I know we do, and we love talking with coaches, love sharing ideas. And a lot of it, I love to talk about business as well. And so much of what we learn is by things that we fail at.
Yeah.
And so I've been humbled tremendously in owning a business. And I feel like anytime I feel like I've got it figured out, I see that I really don't. And it's the and my father-in-law always said, in business, you always set goals, but you seldom reach them the way that you think you're going to reach them. And I found that to be true. And so I love to hear other coaches and facility owners stories and share ideas. So yeah, we'd love to connect with anybody that we can.
Yeah, and once this pandemic is over, like I'm gonna fly out, see you guys, and hopefully anybody in the Chicago area gets to, meet up with you as well, because I know
Yeah,
it's, those conversations are valuable. So
for
and,
sure.
we'll make sure your story gets out there, and I encourage people to connect with Tommy and TC Boost as well.
Thanks, Derek. Really
Thank,
appreciate it.
awesome, thank you, Tommy.